And we're going to get the owner's approval of that and see what he thinks. Bobby, what are you thinking?
I like it.
Does it look better? So basically you like the artwork, but now you don't like it and want it gone. And I think we just showed everybody how to do that. So this, what you saw me do right here, where's my oven cleaner? Okay, we were told that oven cleaner removes pinstriping, one-shot paint pinstriping, and we found out that it actually does, because this was a multi-layer, multi-picture, went from here to here, and it is now gone. This is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete, showing you how to get rid of that custom pinstripe when you don't want it. We'll see you later. That worked pretty good. You want to take that home with you, Bobby? You got any other?
No, you leave it.
But you can have it, dude. It's a whole can. You could say, hey, you could start your own business. I can remove pinstriping now.
There you go.
Okay? You know how they have custom pinstripers?
Peter, I don't do
But
that.
listen, they got the custom pinstriper. Now they got you, the pinstriper remover. Here that worked over at the General Motors plant. When did you work there, Bobby? In 1954. He's the owner of this car that, you know, wanted my friend Pete to take the picture off, but he's talking about pinstriping. Let's see how they used to do it back in the factory back in 1954 with Bobby the hot rod guy. Hang on, Bobby. Hang on, bud. How did they pinstripe cars in the factory, Bobby?
Well, they have two rails.
Now, when you say rail, what do you mean?
It's mobile, and it's got wheels on it. They roll it up to the car, and then they take a little can of paint that's on a little brush like deal. It's got a little wheel, and they have a guide that goes all the way to the front. So when they just roll it on, and it's real.
So it's like one of them those pinstripe badgers. It's got paint inside,
yeah,
and it's got a wheel, and the wheel sucks the paint out as it's rolling.
And they do it real fast. It comes along.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, yeah. You know, if you're a...
And then as the car goes on down the line, well, it dries. And
now, what kind of paint did they use back then, Bobby? Enamel?
Oh no, it's lacquer.
So that stuff was dry in about 15 minutes.
Everything that went on the General Motors product was lacquer.
What did you think when you worked over there? Was it pretty fun working over at the plant?
Well, I learned a lot.
A lot of unique stuff going on.
If I had a kid growing up, he wanted a job, first place he'd work was General Motors. Now they do it a lot different than they did, but I got a real terrific experience because I had a supervisor that believed in me.
Right.
And he took me to the paint shop, the bond shop, the spot where they spot weld all the doors and the fenders. And then one day he'd take me out in underneath the tent where we did repair.
Wow.
And he did repair for him. And I enjoyed working for him.
So basically you worked from point A to point Z.
Well, I got a lot
of it all.
I got a lot of it, only because he liked me and he thought maybe if somebody was out of the plant and didn't have, we wasn't going to come in, well, he'd bring me over to his job and let me do his job for a day or two, and that gave me a lot more experience.
Now let me ask you this, what kind of cars were they building over there in that General Motors factory back in 1955? What was the...
54, they only had Olds, Pontiac, and Buick.
And they all came out of the Arlington, Texas factory?
They only had, that's the reason why they called it BOP.
BOP?
Buick.
Oldsmobile, Pontiac.
Oldsmobile and Pontiac.
Now what was the most popular car built in the factory back then? Which one, Buick, Oldsmobile, Pontiac?
I would say it's 55, Olds.
The Olds?
Yeah, Olds.
That was more popular than the 55 Buick 3-speed on the column?
But a 55 Buick ran good, but it didn't step no Olds.
Really?
No.
The Rocket 88 kicked ass and took names.
Whenever you drove a nose, you just sold rocks in a Buick. They were no lady cars, as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
They did run good. They had a nail-head engine, and it's three.
Now, what's the difference between a nail head and a regular V8 head? What's
Oh, where the heads have the valves. The valves stood straight up instead of slanted, and they got a little bit of more compression out of it. But they never did get good gas mileage because they had a dyno flush in it, and
they had the dyno training, dyno flow,
and it never.
Hold on, you said dyno flush.
Dyno flush. That's what we call it.
That's the dyno flush.
Now the
piece of shit,
Oldsmobile,
basically, flushing down the toilet.
In 1953-54, the Oldsmobile hydromatic plant burnt down.
That's right.
And General Motors had to go with Dynaflow.
Now I thought that was the Cadillac plant that burned down. They had to use Oldsmobile transmissions in the Cadillacs.
Well, they ended up putting Dynaflow in the hoses. You ought to hear those customers bitch.
They were bitching and complaining, yeah.
They didn't like that.
Because I heard that in 1952, if you had a 1952 Cadillac, it wasn't worth as much as the 51 because of the transmission.
Well,
because the transmission plant blew up or something.
I wouldn't doubt it all, but to this day, General Motors has 3 suppliers now. They don't have just one, and they was putting all their trust in one plant, and it burnt, and it put them down there out of business for a whole year.
Now, can you imagine going and seeing a transmission plant burn down? That's magnesium back then.
Well,
you know what magnesium does when it gets a spark? It blows up, dude.
Once it starts burning, it burns.
It keeps on going.
That's the reason why you don't see them on wheels. People were driving with magnesium wheels, and they got up close to the curb, and it started burning. By the time you got a quarter mile down the road, that wheel was completely burnt up.
Yep, that's right. Now, what about that Pontiac Chieftain, bud? Did Pontiac have a 2-door hardtop like the Buick?
Yeah.
Hang on. Okay,
they had a Chieftain.
Now, was the Chieftain the 2-door hardtop?
They had a 2-door Nomad and a 2-door
Pontiac Nomad.
Yeah, Pontiac Nomad.
No, that was a station wagon.
Oh yeah.
That's a rare commodity if you can find one of those.
Rare car.
And you made all those over in Arlington?
No, the bodies came from up north, Cincinnati, I believe, and what they call a purchase body. And they had everything fixed, the steering wheel, everything's on there, and they didn't have the front fenders. We painted the front fenders and the bumpers, and we put all that on. But meanwhile, they dropped the body on a frame down at the chassis line.
Wow. So when you did station wagons and other models that you didn't do there all the time, you would purchase the body already built, and all you do is put the front end on, the front clip.
That's right.
We're talking the fenders, the grill, the hood, the bumper.
You can see the body over on the hold-up stage, and coming down, when you knew he was going to put it on the line, you could see the front end, fenders, and the hood coming down from paint shop.
All right, let me ask you this. Because I went on a tour one time, you brought us out there, me and my wife Minnie, and I noticed that every car that came off the line was a different color.
Oh yeah.
And then here comes the hoods, and it's the same color as the car that's in line, and then there's a blue hood, and then a red hood. Is that how it was back in the 50s, or did they paint like 200 red ones, then 200 black ones? Or was every other one?
All the front ends got painted, the fenders and the hood all got painted at the same time. Now the doors got painted.
But was each car in line the same color? Did they run like 500 cars the same color?
No, every car is different.
But how did they tell? How can they tell this hood goes to that car? How do they know? Or that door goes to that car?
Well, you have a manifest that's attached to the front.
And even back then it was that way?
Yeah, and you had to, before you touch the car, you go up and read the manifest on what, and mostly you already knew what your job was. Yeah. And
they already had them going down the line when it got down the line to where it was. In 1955, Buick 3-speed on the column was the most popular car built because California state troopers bought those cars.
They bought them, yeah.
Were they built in Arlington? Were those cars, the 3-speed on the column, 322 nail lifts?
I would say they were built out there in Indicorn or
Indicorn.
Yeah, they had a General Motors plant at that time, but since then they've dismantled it. They don't have it anymore. And that plant was so bad on quality that General Motors.
Now hold on, are you talking the one in Arlington?
Yeah, no, the one
Incorn.
in California.
Okay.
The reason why is because the only people they could get to work there were people, job hoppers. They hop from job to job. They come to California to work 3 months and then they're gone.
Kind of like the Dust Bowl era.
The turnover was almost 100%.
Wow.
But at General Motors in Arlington, you had farmers, you had people that lived close, and they didn't want to change jobs. They had they'd been out there looking at the jobs, and it paid nothing. But General Motors paid dependably, and you knew you had a job.
Was that one of the best times of your life, Bobby, working out there in the General Motors
plant? I enjoyed it.
Always remember that the rest of your life.
I enjoyed it.
Have a lot of friends from there.
Oh yeah.
When I was out there, when we went out there, you took me and Minnie out there, there was one section and they had like pallets of engines and transmissions stacked 100 feet up in the air.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just motors and transmissions just lined up, dude.
Yeah, yeah. They bring in all those engines.
Is that how it was back in the 50s, Bobby?
Sure, they had the engine line and they had.
And they start with the frame, right? They start with a bare frame.
Frame comes in upside down.
Right.
You put it on the roller.
Upside down.
Upside down. First thing they do is lay the things in there that they're going to put the shocks, springs, and all that. And then after they put the springs in, they put the A-frames on. Then they got their motors that they turn the boats with, and they just pull them down, go burp, burp. And the other guy on the other side does the same thing.
So you got two guys, one on each side.
Yeah, and they know exactly.
One's a lefty and one's a righty.
And to this day,
they still do it upside down.
Flip that frame over when it goes on down the line a little bit, and then they have a purger for the brakes. And
okay.
And that purger just zap, and it's unreal how the brakes are already done.
The brakes are done.
Yeah, no air in the line or nothing. I had a foreman that didn't know what I could do, and he had me putting on those plates on the doors.
The sill plates.
Sill plates. And so they had some screws that he didn't ever know about them because he was such a new foreman. And the screws had self-starting deals.
Yeah, self-starting tips.
Yeah. Well, everybody had been putting the sill plates down and drilling the hole and putting the screw in.
Oh my God.
Because you had it right there. Well, I got smart and lazy. So after I put the seal plates in, I'd grab a screw and put it on the end of the magnetic tip.
Yeah.
And I was out of there. And he kept understanding, why are you out and this other guy's not? And I showed him. I said, well, see here. And boy, and I won $50
So then
over
after that, you got $50 bonus?
I got $50 over there because nobody realized.
So you got a bonus for $50 that week.
It's a time-saving deal. Well,
now back in the 50s, that was a lot of money, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
$50, dude. Wow. What was your average weekly pay over there at the plant?
About $190.
$190 a week?
Yeah.
Damn, you were living large, dude, back in 1953.
Well, you're making $1 and
$1?
$1.10 an hour in 1953, 54, and then it went up as you got 90 days.
Right.
It keeps going up.
So what was the maximum pay at the General Motors plant in 1953, dude?
About $2.10.
$2.10 an hour, dude.
Man. I worked at Fort Worth Steel for 97 cents an hour for 3 months in between getting laid off. And so my foreman over at Fort Worth Steel, he come out and said, "Bab, you got a nickel raise." And I said, "Well,
was that good back then? Were you excited?"
Oh yeah, a nickel raise is something. Make it over $1.
Yeah,
$1.09. So he says,
$1.02 an hour.
He says, I said, well, you just keep your $1, your nickel, and I'm going to General Motors tomorrow for $1.90 an hour. And he says, what? And here he was, my supervisor over at Fort Worth Steel, working there for 20 years, and he didn't make $1.90 an hour.
And he quit his job and go to the
He was ready. He was ready. But General Motors was only hiring people at that time that were out of a job.
Already experienced.
Out of a job and had 4 or 5 years experience. Body shop people, they were hiring them just coming and going.
For what? I thought they were brand new cars. What do they need body shop guys for?
No, they need body shop people pretty bad. Door fitting, hood fitting.
Didn't you used to work in the paint room too for a while?
Oh yeah, I used to lead.
Now how you used to lead?
I used to do the lead.
You did the leading on the tops and...
Yeah, where they join.
No.
And to this day, in 54, 55, you can't see a lid job. But you go out there and find a 55, a 65, and a 66 model Chevrolet, you can see exactly where the lid is. Because they
now, how long did it take you to let in a roof on one side?
You only got a minute and 58 seconds.
A minute and 58 seconds
Yes.
per car?
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
That car moves from here to there in a minute and 58 seconds. And that's all the room you got.
God,
if you go beyond that room, you get this guy in trouble.
So if you go
in that beyond that line, you get that guy in trouble. So
assembly line.
So when you first start a new job, you get a little nervous the first several days, huh?
Oh, it's a pain. I've seen when I was training, I made utility repair, and after the first 2 years.
Now utility repair, what's that?
And I do your job while you go tinker.
Oh, okay. You were like the backup guy.
Yeah.
The swamper.
You hold up your hand and go tinkle, and I'll do your job while you're out.
So you knew how to do everything.
You get 18 minutes now, whereas we used to get 12. So I had 40 people to give 12 minutes. Some people didn't get it, some people did. And so when they hold up her hand, well then you go do their job for 12 minutes. Well,
you're talking a break. 12-minute break.
That means you can go get something.
Oh, you were the break reliever guy.
Yeah, well that's...
You just go up and down the line when they raise their hand, when they want a break, you take their spot. I see what you're saying.
Each man includes 12 minutes before, when you start in the morning, all the way till you have lunch. And then after lunch, you get another 12 minutes.
So before you leave.
And a lot of them abused it, and that made the other guy down the line not get one.
Oh, man.
And you had, so utility repair, not only did you do everybody's job, but you trained everybody.
Huh.
And a lot of people, I'd come in, and they'd introduce me to a new man, just like him. And so I'd get his little scabbard on there with all the screws in it for the job. Each job had a different deal. And when they did, I'd attach them to it, and I'd show him the job, and I'd show him how to put the chrome on, and how to do this.
Because they had a lot of chrome back then.
And a lot of people didn't last a whole day. They'd
leave.
I'd turn around, I'd teach them and say, oh, you got the job? Yeah, I got it. And 30 minutes later, I'd see them walking out the door. So,
now, when you put the chrome on those big old cars back then, when that chrome was put on, you had a lot of clips, bud.
That's right.
Now, did you attach the clips to the chrome and then slide them on the fenders and reach up in there and put them on?
Well, at that time,
how did all that go on, Bob?
At that time, they didn't have...
you had those metal butterfly clips.
They had metal butterfly clip. And so on the 54 Buick, which I did the door on, you reach up and get the chrome out of the box, you lay it on your table, and then you start putting them clips on.
Right.
Well, I had blisters underneath blisters, and cuts underneath cuts. My hands would go home. I'd go home and I couldn't even put my hands in my pocket because
your thumbs were just raw.
And I'd seen blood on the floor because, and they were sharp. They were extra. And a lot of people, when they hired in, the first thing they did, you put masking tape around the finger.
That didn't help.
They had masking tape on top of masking tape. It really.
Those old cars, man, half the car was chrome.
It was, in the 58 Oldsmobile, they had 258 pounds of chrome and stainless steel.
That's including the bumpers.
That's including the bumpers. And
the 58 Buick, that was big. I think 58 was the biggest, chromiest car that was ever made.
In 1958, I was working on the line, and I saw this 58 Buick coming down the line, and I worked on it, and I did these, because repair comes in before anybody. So you learn your job before anybody learns. So they bring in one car every 2 or 3 hours, and it goes real slow down the line, and the repair people put it together. Jeez. And then they start bringing in the people to work on each line, and they all bring them in sequence. They bring the body shop in first, and the chassis shop in first, then they bring in hard trim, then they bring in soft trim, then they mess.
Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, each day.
So you were the guy that went back and Fixed all the mistakes that they didn't get
Well,
done.
I did that after they got started, but when the line first started, there wasn't anybody there but us. We'd go to the end of the line and walk it all the way around.
God.
September, October, November in '53, they brought out the first car, and it's a
Wow.
'54 Pontiac.
A 54 Pontiac, the very first car ever brought
It's
out.
black on black, and they give it to Mayor Vandergrift was there, and they gave it to Leonard Brothers, and Leonard Brothers gave it away for charity.
Now, is that car still out there somewhere? Or?
No, they never could find it, but they did bring in another Pontiac
I saw that.
and rebuild it,
It looked just like it.
and they tried to,
Yeah.
and they
That
rebuilt
was
it.
the 50th anniversary deal.
Yeah.
Well, Bobby, thanks for coming over, bud. Did we get rid of your pinstriping for you? Are you happy?
Oh, I'm happy, yeah.
Okay, it's gone, dude.
I'm proud. I'm glad I didn't do the job. I would
Yeah.
have had it.
All over my hands.
I would have had that bumper roll.
When are you going to let me and Dylan, when are you going to call us back so we can meet you out there, Bobby, to go to the general plant? I want to go, dude.
I'll find out about
Can you get a hold of Vance for me? We're going to call you in a couple days.
Vance does the tours.
Well, when?
Yeah.
When?
Vance Hunt does the tours.
Tell him I want to bring my video camera.
Well, I'll ask him what's the deal.
All right, buddy. See you later.
Let me find out.
Okay, give him a call, bud. Give him a call.